Well, good afternoon, everybody. Now, I take a very keen interest in transport matters, having survived one major car accident and a minor difficulty with an aeroplane just up the road a couple of years ago. So I am keen on these subjects, but can I make it clear from the outset that we are not the NIMBY party. We're not the party saying there must be no development. We're not the party saying we mustn't move into the 21st century. Quite the reverse, in many ways we need to. In fact, I travel around the country more than most people, and it's a nightmare getting round Britain. It's a nightmare. The roads are clogged, the railways are frankly massively overcrowded, and there simply aren't enough trains, and you know, we have a population in this country which has exploded over the last few years. Now, we rather think as a party that shouldn't have been allowed to happen, but it has happened. So let's face up to that. And I'm not against improving the railway services. Indeed, I'm going this week up to Manchester. I have to, because the BBC breakfast programme has moved from down the road here to Salford. So I can't say I'm terribly happy about the fact that to appear on the couch at 7:05, I have to go up the night before. But nonetheless, I will be getting on the train at Euston on Thursday evening and going up to Manchester Piccadilly. It takes 2 hours and 2 minutes from the heart of London to the heart of Manchester. It takes 1 hour and 10 minutes from Euston to Lichfield. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, with rail travel in this country is not speed. We already have fantastic speed. 2 hours, 2 minutes, London to Manchester. It's tremendous, isn't it? You know, you can leave early in the morning and be in Manchester for a breakfast meeting. But I'll tell you what the problem with it is. It's so massively overcrowded that in many cases people have to stand all the way from London to Manchester. So the problem, folks, isn't speed. The problem, I put it to you, is capacity. We simply don't have enough railway capacity. Now, if we had to build a completely brand new line to deal with the capacity problem, we'd ask ourselves the question, where would we build it? Now, I come from Kent, a county that has had to face the challenge of vast numbers of people moving through it more than any other county in the country. And certainly with the opening up of the Channel Tunnel, Kent faced some major challenges. I'll tell you what Kent did. When Kent built the M20, it built it absolutely parallel to the existing A20. And next door to the A20 was the old railway line, which was a very slow railway line. In fact, it took an hour and 48 minutes from Charing Cross down to Ramsgate. But when we built the high-speed rail link to link up with the Channel Tunnel, HS2 as it's known, where did we build it? We built it exactly parallel to the existing railway line. So what we have going down through the middle of Kent are 2 railway lines and 2 one motorway, 1 big A road, and they're all together in a half-mile width going down the centre of Kent. Not much fun for the people who lived in those areas, but they of course were bought out and compensated. But I think you would all agree, a sensible, proper compromise, you know, a realistic way to deal with the problem of huge numbers of people travelling from the continent to London and back again. Now, we already have the M1, do we not, that comes out of London, and you'll notice that the London to Birmingham Railway runs almost parallel with the M1 for much of that route. So if a new railway line had to be built, we should be following the principles that we used in Kent and build it parallel to the existing line, not on the current proposed route, and I suggest to you that is good, plain, common sense. But I don't think we actually need to build a complete brand new railway line, and frankly, I don't think we can afford to build a brand new railway line. If there was to be some massive economic benefit that would be derived from a new railway line, I'd say let's put it on the table, let's examine it. But given how quickly businessmen can get from London to Birmingham and London to Manchester, I don't think shaving 15 minutes off the time is going to make any financial difference to businesses whatsoever. And the thought that we embark upon a project with an estimated cost I think £32 billion, and knowing how accurate government estimates are for building projects. Do you remember the Scottish Parliament? Yeah? It was going to cost 40 million and it cost 430 million. Now, I'm not saying that this would necessarily balloon as badly as that, but private money will not have the confidence in this project to invest in it on the current forecasts of what the cost will be, and therefore what we will have to do to build HS2 is add to our already massive annual budget deficit. So we've got to borrow the money to build the railway line and go on paying interest on that money ad infinitum. So I don't think it works on the plan of the route because it's illogical. I don't think it works on the economics because business doesn't need it. I don't think it works because private money will not come for this project. And even, in fact, the great Victorian railways that were built across this country, nearly all of the shareholders in those firms lost all of their money in one of the biggest stock market disasters in history. But what we do need is more capacity on our railways. And for about a fifth to a quarter of the cost of HS2, we could build longer platforms and longer trains, and I think that is the answer to solving the problem of moving people north to south. I'm not a ranting conspiracy theorist. I mean, it depends which newspaper you read, I suppose, but I'm not a ranting conspiracy theorist. But I've often asked myself, why is this happening? Why is this happening? And why is it happening on this proposed route? Well, I will tell you this, that when I first arrived in Brussels, all the way back in 1999, one of the first things we started voting on and talking about in the European Parliament was the development of trans-European networks. And this all seemed to be a sort of slightly bizarre, fancy idea to me, but I wasn't really sure whether it would ever happen. But I can tell you that there is a map that was produced in 2005 and has in fact been published in the Financial Times and I think one other national newspaper that showed that all the governments who were members of the European Union agreed to what the new trans-European network railway route would be, and guess what? The agreement that the Labour government in 2005 signed up to actually had the route for HS2 as we currently see it exactly as it is. Now, I'm not saying to you that that is the sole reason why it's happening, but I am suggesting to you that it's the reason that nobody is opposing it. Oh, yes, of course, individually, local MPs or local councillors from whatever party it may be will say they're opposed to it. But nationally, we should remember that it was Labour that launched this project. It is now the Conservatives and the Lib Dems that continue to support this project, and I just wonder, somewhere in the back of my mind, whether they're worried they might get a ticking off from my old mate Herman Van Rumpy Pumpy. I don't know. I mean, if not, he can just take it out on me, can't he, really? It doesn't matter. So I'm not saying that that is exactly why it's happening, but isn't it interesting that on this issue, which clearly the public, not just up and down this line incidentally, but across the country, people at meetings say, what in God's name are we doing? Spending £30 billion to shave 15 minutes off a train journey going to Birmingham. And it seems to me that HS2 is a very good illustration of actually what's going wrong in our politics across the board. I worked in the city damned hard for 20 years up until lunchtime, every single day. It quite often went wrong after that, but never mind, that was my choice. So I think what you're seeing, and I would suggest to you that the reason that you saw this week UKIP going above the Lib Dems in the polls and beginning to pose a threat to the political establishment is that we are people from practical and pragmatic backgrounds, that we look at issues, we think about issues, and we're not part of that political consensus, and that we are closer on issues such as HS2 to the way the people in this country think than our professional, career, political class, who are agreed as one that this project should go ahead. And that goes across the board, I think, for so many other issues that matter to us. You know, we're the only party saying that we think every child in this country should be given the opportunity to go to a selective school, to have the opportunity, if they're bright enough, to go to a grammar school, so that the poorest kids, you know, bright kids from poor backgrounds, are given a chance. We're the only party in this country saying, whilst we do not discriminate or hold prejudice against anybody from anywhere in the world, regardless of their religion, their race, their colour, that is of no interest to us, but we're the only party saying that we think having a total open door to the whole of Eastern Europe at a time when youth unemployment in this country is running at 21% is complete and utter madness, and what we ought to do is bring back proper border controls in this country. And we're the only party saying that on the most vital constitutional question that will face us in our lifetimes, that whilst we want to be friends with Europe, whilst we want to trade with Europe, we don't want to be governed. We don't want 75% of our laws made by Mr Barroso and Mr Van Rompuy and everybody else, and that we believe it is an urgent need that the people of this country are given a free and a fair and an open referendum so that they can decide their own future and not have it blocked from them by politicians in Westminster who lie to us at every single election, saying they'll give us a referendum and then, when they're in office, not delivering the goods. And I want to make it clear, we are not anti-European. I hate it when they say, you're anti-European. I love Europe. I love travelling around Europe. It's a wonderful place, with its different languages and cultures and histories and cheeses and all the rest of it. I love Europe. Indeed, when I worked for those 20 years in the city, I worked for 2 French companies. Okay, they both sacked me for insubordination, but I'm trying not to bear the grudge. You know, we genuinely do want to trade and work with our European neighbours, but we also want our hands freed in a global economy to forge some trading relationships with other parts of the world who we've turned our backs on. And I'm talking about, I think one or two of you may have got it already, but I'm talking about 28% of the world's population. They speak English, they have common law, they have similar accounting practices, they are in many cases our own kith and kin and our cousins, and it is utterly shameful that we do not have free trade relationships with the Commonwealth, and that's the first thing UKIP would do once we've left that European Union. I hope that you feel that we are a patriotic party with a small p, we're a Eurosceptic party with a big E, but we're a pragmatic party. We're a party of people who come from the real world. We're a party of people, many of whom have run businesses and have got their feet on the ground. And I put it to you that HS2 is just yet another example of a career class of politicians in this country who are hopelessly out of touch, grossly irresponsible with money that isn't theirs anyway, and that the only way this will be stopped is through the ballot box. Now, I have spoken at many HS2 meetings up and down the line, and I will do whatever I can to back the Stop HS2 campaign and anybody else. But let me just put this to you. In the last 15 months, there have been 4 district council by-elections in South Buckinghamshire, just across the road. UKIP have averaged 30% of the vote in those 4 district council by-elections. We've come within a whisker of winning all of them. We haven't quite got there. We did win 3 council seats in Buckinghamshire last year, but I promise you, if up and down this route UKIP start to win council seats on the back of our pragmatism and on the back of our approach to HS2, and if it looks like we can start winning seats in Parliament up and down this HS2 line, it will be stopped. Thank you.